long time ago, I hired a man to do my worrying for me. Makes you wonder. Makes you wonder what the world is coming to. A long time ago, I hired a man to do my worrying for me. Makes you wonder. Makes you wonder what the world is coming to.
Hello everybody, this is JoyZ with Sorrow here. I've noticed from all the videos I've made in the last year or two, the video that's gotten the most view counts is a knife product review, where I did a review on a Smith & Wesson Border Guard series of knives. The first generation or the second generation, I believe, was the first one I did a review on. And well, since I've noticed I started getting a lot of view counts on that, I figured, well, you know, I like sharp stuff, I like knives, I like guns, I like weapons and stuff, so that wouldn't be a bad thing to just do every now and then, to do a product review. So this is pretty much what this is going to be. Today I have something that I ordered off of Amazon, and Amazon is really starting to become, or has been, a nice place to look for stuff like this, you know, and not just knives or hunting equipment, but fishing equipment as well. I've bought a lot of my fishing stuff over on Amazon. I have yet to really be disappointed. Yeah, there's one or two things that disappointed me, but overall it's been a really good experience. So that being said, today I'm going to review my first big knife that I've received from Amazon, and that is this right here. This is the GHK-Nepal 3 Chirra Kukri. These are made in Nepal, made by hand. They are made from the old springs from trucks, specifically Mercedes trucks. Or at least that's the quality of they're trying to go for, because apparently the Mercedes trucks have the highest quality springs in them in comparison to every other truck in the world. I don't know. I'm not a car expert or a truck expert. How about we take this time to go through the history a little bit of this knife in particular. Now, this knife is made by a group of people called the Gurkhas. The Gurkhas are a group of people from Nepal and northern India. The Nepalese basically use this knife regardless of what size it is for everything. It is a kitchen tool, it is a kitchen knife, it is a axe, it is a, you know, it is a chopping knife for firewood. It is a it is pretty much a universal tool for the Nepalese. Sometime over 200 years ago, the British were having a war in India. Obviously, if you guys don't know, the British probably ruled about 3/4 of the world, if not more than that, at one point in time. During that time of conquest, the British actually encountered the Gurkhas in Nepal, and they fought for something like 3 to 4 years. During the fighting, they actually ended up earning each other's respect. So the British general ended up deciding there's no reason to be wasting ourselves on such fine people. Why don't we hire them instead? And for the over 200 years now, the Gurkha, who are also known in England as the Royal Gurkha Unit, I'm pretty sure there's some other units that I'm not mentioning that are part of the Gurkha unit, have been mercenaries for the British government up until today. They still work for the British government. Unfortunately, during the last 10 years, it seems like their numbers are dwindling. And it's not so much that there aren't many Nepalese left to, you know, fill the ranks, but, you know, European countries, Britain, have cut down dramatically on their defense costs, so these guys are one of those units that seem to be getting the axe, which is unfortunate. So now, let's get to the knife. Okay guys, the knife is pretty long. It is about 18 inches in length, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. Now, because these are made by hand, you need to take into consideration that the dimensions might change if you decide to order one for yourself. The scabbard is two pieces of wood with a leather. It's said to be a water buffalo hide wrapped around it. You have a leather piece here, obviously, to put through your belt loop. Now, normally these kukris, when they're done traditionally, they have some brass accent, usually a brass point accent here in the bottom. This one did not have it. Let me show you just guys by example here. Okay, so this is a more traditional Chirra Kukri here. It's much smaller. This one is used as a biltong knife. As you can see here, this one does have brass accents here at the bottom, usually the brass point. The brass accent here as the collar of the blade. And then the handles are usually made either out of wood or buffalo horn. Now this one's Tang probably ends partially here. This one in particular is more of like a food processing knife, a simple rudimental knife, mainly again food processing, very, very light work, but we'll talk about this one in another video. Now, the handle is made out of wood. You have 3 steel pegs going through and through the handle and through the blade. The blade is obviously a full Tang, as you can see the actual blade material going all the way down to the end. And there's still a bit of a rat Tang. Well, I can't honestly tell if that's actually a rat Tang added to the full Tang, or if this is just decor at this point. But it would be interesting if they did add a rat tail piece here when it was already full Tang. I mean, I don't know if it's going to make it any better or worse, but I guess why not? Now, traditional kukris come with 2 accessory blades. Now, if you get a kukri that's a little smaller, like in the 5-inch, 6-inch blade size and below, you might not get these, so don't be too concerned about that. This here is a sharpening stone, or a sharpening piece of metal. There is no edge on this, none whatsoever. This is just so that you can sharpen the knife back and forth. Now, I've tried it a little bit, and it really just seems to work more like a honing device rather than an actual sharpening steel. I will note though, there is a little bit of wobble on there, which at first I was thinking about returning it, but I was really thinking about it. I'm not going to be using this very often to sharpen. Again, this would be more of a field thing. I'm even considering honestly just ditching this sheath because I don't want to mess it up, because it is a traditional sheath and these knives, and probably even making a setup so I can build my own kydex sheet for it. I could also have somebody who does leather make me a leather sheet. You can actually look online and some people have made beautiful leather sheets for these knives. Again, that's a different topic in video, but those are options. So yes, this is a sharpening steel, only for sharpening. I mean, I guess you could stab with it. It is pointy, but again, it's not stuck on there very well. I hear that the glues that they use are either tree resins, or they could actually be like cheap industrial glues. It doesn't look like this had used any resin whatsoever. They could have used that natural stuff. The next little blade that's part of the set, now this is an actual knife. As you can see, this actually has a point and an edge. See? There is an actual edge on this one, and this is for small utilitarian stuff, things you don't want to use a big knife for, things that you don't want to ruin your edge with, you know, like cutting paper, rope, or stuff like that. By the way, guys, yeah, if you didn't know, cutting rope, cutting paper can actually ruin the edge on a knife. A lot of people don't know that. Even with all the videos that people like Nunt and Fancy and everybody else, and Scalagran and everybody else has done, a lot of people don't know that. Now, let's get to the actual knife. Now, before we take out the knife, there is a proper way to unsheath the knife. You grab from the top and you pull out. Okay? People will try to grab it like this. Let me show you why. And there are many other people online that will also show you. This is the, you know, the end of the scabbard or hilt where the blades go. But if you look, see how I told you guys, it's two pieces of wood, right here and right here. There's a little bit of wood, a thinner piece of wood up here, but down here, there's no wood there. As a matter of fact, I think the only thing that's in there is a bit of folded leather just on the strip and then glued on. So if this is sharp enough, this will eventually cut through into your fingers. And now, pretty much what we'd all been waiting for, the knife itself. I did clean up the knife a little bit. It was a little dirty. You guys got to understand, these are literally made by hand. Okay, the minimalist of modern technology is the minimalist of modern technology is used to create these knives. You might have a grinder, an angled grinder, and a bench grinder, and that might be it. You know, the kiln might have a heat fan blowing through it, but that's it. Everything else is pretty much hand done. And again, this is called the 3 Chirra Kukri. Now, Chirras are fullers. That is the English translation of it. If you guys know anything about fullers on knives and swords, a fuller is basically these cutouts that you see right here. 1, 2, 3. And some people have actually said things like these are meant for blood to come down through so that you can cut easier into the body. No, guys, fullers were actually designed into knives to make them lighter and to save on material. That's the reason why fullers exist. Lighter does make you able to wield the weapon better. These were not just weapons for the Nepalese. These were a tool, a utilitarian tool. Yes, it was used as a weapon by warriors. They also used I believe they used a sword called a Sirapate or something like that. Although there is a bit of a debate whether it was actually used for war or if it was a ceremonial or religious thing. But either way, let's not try to get too off topic here. So the blade is about 12 inches in length. It is made out of 5160 carbon spring steel. And it is just gorgeous. Just gorgeous. Again, I had to clean this up. When you guys get these through the mail, they will be covered in oil. They might have some imperfections, such as like little spot marks, tooling, such as one right here. If you look at the spine on here, there is a bit of little dirty tracks on it. These are all things that you can pretty much clean up easily with some steel wool, some sandpaper, and some polish. Okay. On the bottom here by the guard, it says Nepal or Nepal. On the other side here, you see GK&Co, the company who makes it. Now, this is a heavy blade, guys. This weighs more than 2 pounds. And the way that the blade is designed is, you see the leaf part here that, you know, starts to pretty much flare out from the rest of the blade. This is the chopping part. This part right, this area right here is what people would call the sweet spot. This is the area you want to be chopping down wood or anything heavy and hard with. That is how one of the reasons this blade has a lot of cutting power. This spot right here is more for fine knifing stuff, more like, let's say you're going to feather out some wood stock so that you could start a fire, that you need to cut some paper or something lightweight. And what do I mean by feathering for firewood? Well, what I mean is you grab some light pieces of wood and then you just scratch it, you know, scratch little thin, almost thicker than paper like pieces, so that you can light those up, because they'll be easier to light up than just like some random big chunk of tree. Now, you see this notch at the bottom right here? Now, in most kukris, it's it has to do a little bit with the family or the people who made the kukri, and so this can actually change depending on what style or what company you buy it from. And there are many resources you can check out online to show you the different types and different meanings, even information on the certain families who make these blades, because these are family-made knives. Now this is another way you could tell that you got a legit kukri, guys. Look at that spine. That is a really, really thick spine right there. In some places almost a ½ inch thick. I'd say it's about 3/8. 3/8 or anywhere from 9 to 10 millimeters thick at the thickest point of the spine of this blade. Now, why do they do that? Why is the blade so thick in the back? Well, the main reason is because of the way that the blade is designed, and the thickness in the back allows it to be softer than the rest of the metal on the blade. What is important about that? Well, in a Japanese katana, they have a similar process where the back of the blade will be softer than the edge. What does that do? Well, for the katana, it lets you keep the sharpness on the edge longer, and it lets it take blows because the softness of the spine of the katana can take the shock of what it's supposed to hit. Now, this is probably 2 to 3 times, 4 times thicker than any katana that I've wielded. And at least the spine is. And the edge is supposed to have, just like with the katanas, a much harder, and higher carbon content than the spine. So the spine is soft so that when the edge is hitting anything, it's going to send that shock through the blade, and it's going to be able to absorb it better. And it's going to give you better performance. So the thickness of the spine, the weight of the blade, the overall shape of the blade is really what makes this practically almost a perfect survival knife or camping knife. Now, what are the general purposes you can use this knife for? Well, camping knife is the biggest one that comes to mind. This would make an excellent camping knife. Why? Well, because it can replace 2 things at once. It can replace a standard camping knife and a chopping axe because of the design of the blade. The blade is very front heavy, and like I said, as long as you hit in that sweet spot right there, you will be actually able to chop better with this than you would a small hand axe. When you move the blade, one thing that you notice is that as the blade is pointed forward, it perfectly lines up with the straightness of your hand. Now let me bring the blade back without trying to move that from that straightness. Now, as you see the contour of the line here, you might think, oh, well, how is that supposed to make a cut? Well, look at where the line is. The line is going this way. The line is right here, but the blade is already past the line here. So when your hand lines up to make the chop, the blade's weight and design basically doubles up your strength when you strike with it on wood, or anything else for that matter. Now, as you'll see in some of the videos that I'm going to put up for chopping tests, you don't have to actually wield this thing aggressively. You don't have to move your hands all the way out and come down with force, all the way back and come down with force as you would with a chopping axe. Again, the design of the blade, the weight, and even the design of the handle help with that. Now, when you use a kukri and you handle a kukri, a hard grip, a tough grip is not something you'll actually need. When you feel how the kukri moves naturally, you can actually, it just kind of just hooks into your hand. And that's what I mean by you can actually just easily chop with this. For example, with an axe, you're gonna put your hand all the way up, and then you're gonna strike down, all the way up and strike down. You don't have to do that with this. Because of the way the kukri is designed, again, with the blade, the weight, and everything, with the flick of the wrist, see? Look how with a flick of the wrist, you can practically get the same amount of strength that you would with an axe going all the way back. Let me try to give you guys an example.
A few moments later.
See? Just a few chops. See, there's not a lot of movement on my hands. If you look at how I move my wrist, you know, it's the wrist that's doing all the work, not the arm, or not the upper arm, not the shoulders. It's just the wrist. With just the wrist and some light taps, look at what you can get. I'm not trying to cut this wood. I'm just, you know, flinging it in my wrist, just whacking at it. But because of the design of the blade and the weight, look at what it could do just practically dicking around with it. Now imagine if we're actually going to get serious with this.
A few moments later.
And this isn't even a stable piece of wood. It's moving around all over the place. I just have it wedged between a chair. That's why I'm holding it up. Guys, very little effort can be made with this knife. See? Less than 2 minutes, 2x4 chopped. Knife does not take any damage from it at all. Just a little dirty. Just a little dirty. I love this thing, man. This is such a fucking awesome knife. This is so great. The Nepalese did an excellent job with this. This is a very great tool. You know, it's a small shovel. It's a carving tool. It's a, I mean, you could probably use it as a fucking hammer if you really had to. I would not recommend it, but you probably could use it as a hammer if you really had to. But just overall, man, the quality of these blades, while not being machine made or, you know, have a German style quality control to things, they are pretty amazing. If you guys plan to order one, I can't stop you. I have to highly recommend ordering one of these, even though, like I said, there are some pros and cons to it. Let's start with the cons. The cons are the blades will not come to an exact dimension and they might be a little dirty. Why? Again, these are blades that are made by hand with the most minimum amount of modern tooling. So keep an eye on that. Second, you will have to do some work to the blade once you get it because of some of the imperfections. Usually it's just a little dirty, it has a slight bit of rust. Nothing some steel wool some polishing couldn't really clean up depending on how severe it is. And the beauty of ordering this stuff on Amazon is if you really get it and it's just really crappy, you can always send it back. You do have a time window to when you can send it back, but Amazon's very good about the returns. So if you order one and you think that the one that you got just isn't up to par, which believe me, I was pretty close to returning this one, you can do so. And that was one of the beauties of shopping with Amazon, and that's one of the reasons why I continue to shop with Amazon. Now, I do want to talk about self-defense with this knife. Is it capable of it? More than capable. You can definitely hold yourself with this knife against an attacker, or maybe even a few attackers, as evidenced through some of the Gurkha soldiers from World War II and onward. There's a channel on here called Nut and Fancy, where he does bring up a valid point. In certain, if not most situations, you're going to have a tough time validating defending yourself with something so big because of the kind of wounds it can cause, guys. This is not a toy. In many cases, and especially in a close range situation, this can be a very dangerous weapon. This is pretty much a limb chopper. So in a self-defense situation, unless you're dealing with an armed mob or someone who is heavily armed and this is all you had, you might have some problem justifying it as self-defense, which is such a brutal weapon. So, self-defense, it can definitely do it. Just be very careful what you're getting yourself into. Check with local, state, and federal laws. Now the pros. The pros was about 70 bucks. Okay, and if you have Amazon Prime shipping, you usually get it in 2 to 3 days. So that's a big plus. Long time ago, before Amazon, these knives were very difficult to find. If you were lucky, you probably found them at a gun show. That's actually, a gun show was the first time I ran into a legitimate Nepalese kukri knife. Yeah, they cost a lot of money. A blade like this back then was about almost $200. So, I mean, would I have paid for it back then? If I had the money to spare, I would have, because I understand and I know the quality of these knives. But for many people, it is out of their price range, or at least a knife at $200 is ridiculous out of some people's price ranges, considering you can get a gun at that price. It's, you know, most likely it's going to be a used gun or like a high point pistol, but it is still something you can defend yourself that's more modern than something like this. But thanks to Amazon, you can now start finding these as low as about 65 bucks, as high as about 120 bucks. And you can find them in different sizes, different shapes, different handle lengths, different designs of blade even. They still keep that kukri shape, but some of the blades widen up, some of them thin out, and they have different names. They're still kukri technically. The other pro is that, again, this is a tool more than it is a knife. This for camping would be excellent because it replaces a chopping axe, replaces it could even replace the standard, tree chopping axe for just this, which means you're going to be lightening your load up a lot better. Okay, this could even replace the standard, hip knife that you would keep for camping as well. And you do have, at least with this scabbard, you do have a sharpening stone and you have a smaller knife for any other uses that you may need. The other positive is these are handmade, which unfortunately, as far as quality, oh, fuck me, really? 37 minutes and 20 seconds into filming and I've had about 3-4 planes fucking pass by. Hey delay. Hey delay.
A few moments later. One eternity later.
Now, another pro to this is these are handmade. And why is that a pro? Well, for some people it might not be a pro, but I'm getting kind of a little tired of factory-made stuff, guys. Seeing something of quality come out that was made with somebody's hands or a group of people's hands is just something that I can honestly appreciate and respect. It's probably not a pro for other people, but for me it is. And it doesn't matter to me if it was made in America or made somewhere else, as long as it's of quality and it's made by, the right people. There's no reason why I shouldn't purchase it or you shouldn't, unless that's not your thing. And if that's not your thing, I understand. You are welcome to your opinion and you're welcome to get what you like. Now, the other pro I can give on this is collectability. You can collect these guys, and there are several different types of kukris that you can collect. This is a semi-traditional one. I already showed you the little knife, which is more of the traditional type. There are traditional types of rat tail tangs, which is another type of more traditional model. And then there are much more modern versions like the Operation Enduring Freedom or Iraqi Freedom or the Afghanistan issued Gurkha kukris. They don't use these types of handles anymore, or the old world handles. They're still full tang, like this is, showing off the full tang of the blade, but the handles have actually narrowed out and are a little bit more elongated, I believe. But I really like this knife, guys. This knife is wonderful. This is now my camping knife. This is now, definitely a part of my. This is a definite part of my collection now, and I highly recommend it. Now, this is the first review that I'm making on the knife, and it's really more of a first impression. I usually don't like making videos like that where I'm just talking about something that I've only had for a very short amount of time, because I don't know what's going to happen with this knife. You know, am I going to use it today to make this video, and then tomorrow is it just going to completely rust out on me? You know, that's obviously not going to happen, but you just never know what the fuck's going to happen. So I like to take my time in testing things and then give you guys the heads up, give you a better pro and con about it. But I noticed that there is not a lot of videos out there on this specific kukri made by this manufacturer. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching the video. I hope you liked it. Hit the like button and subscribe, and have a good day.
Makes you wonder what the world is coming.